Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Idaho House Republicans podcast, where you get to learn a little bit more about the people that you've sent to the State House. And today we have the distinct privilege to have Representative Dan Garner with us. He represents Legislative District 28. He sits in seat B and he's in his second term. Welcome to the Idaho House Republicans podcast, Representative Garner.
Thank you, Victor.
Hey, let me tell you a little bit about Representative Garner. So he has raised a farmer and a rancher in Clifton, Idaho for 38 years. He has a BS in economics from BYU. He's a small business owner. He's been on the local school board. What school board do you represent?
West Side School District. I was on their school board for 10 years. Would have been 12 if I wouldn't took this position.
So from 2013 to 2023, roughly,
Yep.
you were on the school board? Okay. And then you're the State Farm Bureau Organic and Direct Marketing Committee. I don't know what that means, but we're going to talk about that. And you have 4 beautiful children, yes?
Correct.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about first we'll talk about your district.
Okay.
So we always want to know what people's districts are like. So where is your district and what do people care about? Like, what are the big legislative issues for them in District 28?
Okay. My district includes Franklin County, Power County, and the west half of Bannock County. And then it takes in Chubbuck and up along there. So it's really a different district. It's mainly rural. The 2 counties are mainly rural. But then that Bannock County, I take in some urban area. And it's amazing to see the district difference in what the district, depending on where they're at, what their concerns are.
And so contrast for us, what do your urban people want you to do and what do your rural people care about?
Okay, my rural people, they're really concerned about water and private property rights,
Right.
and getting a good education, because it's hard for the tax base is so different on the rural schools than it is the urban schools.
Right.
That it's hard to get the proper funding. And my urban districts, they're more concerned about taxes. They're also concerned about education and making sure their kids have an option and get the best education possible. And but mainly taxes and more along those lines.
And housing affordability.
And housing affordability.
Yeah, that's
yes.
always. But I think
the number one issue in both districts.
I think that's
the
universal, right?
It is.
In Idaho. So tell me why you decided to run for office 4 years ago.
It was the perfect time for me to run. My kids, me and my wife became empty nesters 4 years ago, and I'd always thought about running, but I was serving on the school board, and there were some big shakeups with the redistricting, and I had 3 or 4 superintendents come to me and ask me if I'd consider running. And I thought about it for a while, and after talking to my wife and family, and I decided to throw my hat in the ring and see how I did. So
I should have mentioned you have 4 children, but tell us about the name of your lovely wife and how long you've been married.
You're going to get me in trouble.
No.
I am. My wife is Sherry Jo Garner, and we've been married 36 years.
Oh, that's awesome. No, why would you be? Oh, even just in case
Because
you got the number
I'm
wrong.
36. It might be 35.
That's funny.
I think this anniversary will be 36.
Well, we've had some people come in who their bios are short grandchildren. So they'll say you have 12 grandchildren. No, we have 15 grandchildren, but you got to update the bio. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you're close. And she will give you grace, I'm sure.
I hope so.
So anyway, tell us about your involvement on the school board, because you just mentioned that some of the superintendents of the schools wanted you to run. So what was your involvement in the school board?
I was chairman for a few of those years, and then I just served on the board. But it was there's definitely a learning curve for being on the school board. The funding, and that is so different. How it comes from, some of it comes from the federal government, some of it comes from the state. And the people in the district always think you have more control than you do, because a lot of those funds are tied to certain programs or certain things, and you can't move them around. So it took at least 2 years to get used to it and know what you could do and what you couldn't do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, tell people what committees you serve on here in the State House.
I am lucky. I serve on the Agriculture Committee, the Education Committee, and the Judiciary and Rules Committee.
Yeah, those are good assignments.
They're good assignments.
For a second termer.
Yep.
Yeah, you got the trifecta there.
I am happy, and it's a wide, diverse range of committees, and it kind of involved. It kind of touches my district in every
In every way. Hey, so let's turn to a couple bills, shall we?
Oh, you bet.
So let's talk about House Bill 911, which deals with electricity and the framework that the Idaho Public Utilities and the Idaho PUC would fall under. Talk a little about what's the issue and what were you trying to solve?
911 is a large load bill, and it's a rate protection bill for they call them senior members, but they're your housing. And it kind of morphed. 2 years ago, or was it last year? 2 years ago, I brought 395 with Representative Mickelson.
Okay.
And it spelled out that anything over 30 megawatts, and 1 megawatt was enough energy to power 700 homes.
Exactly.
So, it's a big city. You're talking a city that they would have to do certain things and provide their own generation power and their own infrastructure for the lines and substations and stuff like that. We got that through the House, but we're so late we didn't get it through the Senate. And then we had a lot of pushback from, of course, the utilities and some of those industries. So we sat down, we worked on it, and I was so glad to have Representative Veely come on board this year. He understood the negotiation in the rate cases that the PUC does.
Okay.
And so he was able to kind of take the reins, and we came up with this 911, which got us across the finish lines, I hope. It was heard and came out of committee today on the Senate side. So I'm hoping it'll pass the Senate floor and end up on the governor's desk for a signature. But what this bill does is the same thing. It protects the ratepayers, but it does it by anything over 50 megawatts, which is
about 35,000 homes.
Yeah, 35,000 home, which is a big city, and it's mainly directed towards those large load users. And the thing that I really like about it is it puts they call it a rim test on it, so that the PUC gets to use that rim test to decide how it will affect the rates of the senior members, like your homes and stuff. And if it's going to affect them, they can deny on that basis. But I really like it because it calls for them to do that test again in 3 years.
And these larger load users, does that mean like if a data center comes in, or does that mean a new housing development? What does that mean?
Well, that was a lot of the pushback we got. We settled on a 50 megawatts because that's probably going to be a large data center.
Like a data center.
A 20 or 30 could have been a food processor like Chobani building on or Land
Right.
Rest. And so we adjusted that to get it through and not hurt our ag industry in the state.
And we heard like Micron might be like 800 megawatts
Yes.
fully loaded or something.
Yes.
So it's that type of, so you want to make sure that if these come in, that they are not adversely affecting the ratepayer that's just sitting at home watching the NCAA tournament this weekend.
Right. What bring that up is we've had such high rate increases by our utilities the last few years that we started wondering why. And it came when we got looking into it. They're at their max generation capacity.
Oh, okay.
So we figured we needed to had some type of protection there for the normal ratepayer.
And just so everyone knows at home, that bill did pass the House floor 65-3.
Yes.
So that's a pretty overwhelming. Now it was in the committee and out of committee?
It came out of committee this morning.
And what
on the
committee
Senate
was it
side.
in?
That is a good question.
Business? I don't know.
No, it's would be one of the germane committees. It would have went through probably resources or
that
something.
Makes
but
sense.
We're late enough in the session. It's a different committee that they
could have been Ways and Means over there in the Senate. Anyway, thank you so much for the work on that. And let's talk a little bit about a Senate bill 1326A, and it deals with property right protections, Fourth Amendment protections.
Yeah.
What is this? What is the issue that you saw here, and why are you supporting the bill?
Okay, it's actually Senator Harris's and Senator Guthrie's bill. Started on the Senate side, but when I heard they were bringing it, I decided to co-sponsor it because I've had some personal experiences with it. But what it does is you're protected from an unlawful search and seizure on your home and your curtilage, which is your outdoor buildings and the buildings around your home. but you're not protected on an open field. And so this bill will make it so the state can't come in and search your field ground or anyway, they can't come on your place without a warrant.
And you said from personal experience that you've...
Yes.
So you actually had this happen to you?
Yeah, I debated on the floor on this one when it came over, and I related the story then, but I talked my wife into going up and helping me round up some cows one day, and there was just being her and there wasn't our boys to help that day, and we went up, got around the cows and started pushing them down. And all this is on private ground, private property, and I came down around a corner, and there was 3 fish and game officers there standing right in the road that the cows need to go down, and of course...
And it's your road.
And it's my road, my property, and you know what happens then is they split and you lose them, because they're going to keep moving. But anyway,
right.
So it was a little frustrating.
And so you want to make sure this doesn't happen without some kind of knowledge to it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And that bill, tell me where that bill is right now.
That bill is it came over to the House from the Senate. We voted on it. It passed, and it was on its way to the governor's desk to be signed.
And that will become law, I'm sure.
I imagine he will.
Idaho and protection rights. They come one comes with the other.
Yep, so. It does.
Hey, let's talk about specifically. Let's turn to education a little bit.
Okay.
The legislature has been a big part of the recent success we've seen from the investment that they've made over the last 10 years. They've invested another $1.5 billion in public education. The average student is getting 84% more funding per student. 7% of our students are graduating with some kind of certificate.
Yeah.
Most of them are taking CTE courses.
Yes.
And there's been 1.8 million credits earned, continuing education credits that have been earned through the Advanced Opportunities Program. We're spending a lot more money in literacy. So the legislature, superintendent of public instruction, the governor have been solidly behind public education. They even did the school modernization fund, $1.1 billion going into the school districts to help modernize the buildings and lower local property taxes. So we've obviously had, we've been very dedicated to public education here in Idaho. And so you wanted to talk a little bit about your take on Idaho education, and the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, well, thank you. Idaho has really invested a lot more money into education the last 3 or 4 years, and we've changed our direction a little bit. And I'm really happy with some of the progress we've had. We've got the launch program, which has increased our go-on rates, which is really important in our state because we were pretty low on the go-on.
And remind people a go-on rate means?
Go-on rate means that out of high school, they get some type of further education, either technical skills or college,
right?
Or something that'll prepare them to enter the job workforce.
Perfect.
So that's been a great thing that we've done, and we've got more school choice than we ever had before.
Yes.
And so it's really good. I'm worried a little bit with the budget crunch that we've got, that they'll start cutting some of those programs. And we saw a cut to IDLA past the House floor this afternoon. So it's going to happen. But
so let's talk about that.
I hope we don't hurt it too bad.
So the IDLA. First, tell us what is that's the Idaho Digital Learning
either association. or academy.
So tell us about what that program is and what the bill that was on the House floor today, what that was proposed to do.
Okay. That's a digital school where we can, our students in public school or homeschool or anyone can sign up and take a course online and get credit for it. And that's where most of our rural schools get their dual credits, or even any of our schools can get dual credit for college and high school credit. They also fill in it's really important for our rural schools because they fill in with areas where they can't hire or find a teacher. You can go online and sign up for a teacher. They're usually a college professor or another high school student teacher that does it on their off time. And it makes it so that you get what you need. And the electives, our rural school makes it so that we have electives that the rural schools would never have otherwise.
Okay.
Because they just don't have the staff or the funding.
Now, the website of IDLA talks about how you can easily access online classes for students throughout the state, helping with dual credits, enrolling students in subjects that they're not currently offered in the school that they attend, right, and also the flexibility of when you can take the courses.
Yes.
So those seem to be the three kind of pillars upon which IDLA was built. The debate on the floor today was very robust. I think I watched the debate. It was probably almost an hour. I think almost every single representative stood up. It was very respectful. That's how we do things in Idaho. We battle it out on the floor, we take the vote, and then we remain friends. So talk about what your perspective was on this bill,
okay,
and why you were going to not support the bill that was offered on the floor.
I didn't support this bill. It's the first time with me being here that I've ever debated twice.
Okay.
And that was different, to get up and debate twice, because you're supposed to bring up new things that you'd forgotten, and I had. So it was a, like you said, it was a very robust debate, a very good debate, and very civil. It was. I love it when that happens in Idaho, and we don't fall apart. This bill would cut IDLA funding by 50%.
Okay.
At all the districts, and it set fees, and that was one of my biggest concerns was if we're setting fees for people to take classes, then it kind of makes it so the haves and the haves not get different quality of education, or have the ability to get that education is different.
So your point is that some may not be able to afford the fee, some may not be able to afford the fee, and
right.
So
it also reined IDLA back to that those three stools or pegs, like you said,
right,
that they were put in for. But I feel like IDLA has branched out, and they've done a good. They've kind of took the ball and ran with it, and they've got more things that they offer now, and it.
To give people an example of something that when you say they've branched out, what have they added to their arsenal that you've noticed?
Well, they've got like credit recovery. So like if as some students do, they come into high school and that first year it's different, and they lose focus, and they fail a few classes, and you've only got 4 years the state requires so much now that it's
right,
hard to get caught back up. So IDLA has started offering those type of classes too, where you can get caught up if you've messed up and failed your physics class or your beginning algebra. I think that's the number one that's usually failed.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then it's just being used more than what they expected it to be, so the budget's been higher on it. We have in a lot of our schools where students will come out of high school with an associate's degree, which is because of the dual credits that's offered by IDLA. So it's that, and it's a tough budget year, so that's why it was targeted, I think. They do have a legitimate argument, and I mean,
going back to the original conception,
right. They had a legitimate argument that I agreed with on the floor, that a lot of our districts, you have to enroll in the public school in order to be able to take IDLA. And so they're getting paid for attendance in class plus taking IDLA, which is
so it's like almost double counting
like
the student, a double dip. Yeah.
But of course, my argument was, well, then let's fix that problem. Let's not cut their funding in half, and because it'll really hurt the program.
Well, it sounds like you have a bill for next year to work on.
I have one that I can
and
come
that
back
could be
and
it.
say, let's just require that they don't have to be. Yes.
Now that bill ultimately was passed.
It was
so
passed.
the IDLA budget would theoretically be cut by 50%. And the argument that did seem to carry the day on the floor was that we wanted to return to the original purpose that it was
Correct.
given, and
Just
the long-term preservation was the argument. Now, a lot of the representatives like you who have rural exposure, that's where it seemed like there was a little bit more of the rubber hitting the road. The rural representatives seem to be more concerned about this IDLA.
Yeah, there's definitely a disparity between the rural and urban school districts and the education process, and it all stems from the tax base.
Right.
A rural district doesn't have the tax base for the property tax to support the school that an urban area does, just because of the housing and
number of teachers,
right.
Facilities,
electives offered.
Right.
Yeah.
And so IDLA in those cases has a very valuable gap
role.
that it fills.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Perhaps the Representative Garner bill next year will be, let's figure out how we eliminate double dipping and maybe add back some of the arsenal. So we'll look forward to that next year. It'll be House Bill 1.
Bill 1. I'll hope.
Anyway, let's end our conversation talking about one of the topics that you mentioned, which is water.
Yes.
So how, you are on agricultural affairs.
Yep.
And so have any major water issues come through agricultural affairs this year or since you've been on the committee? And how do we protect our farmers and ranchers that desperately need the water?
Yes, we've had a couple come through the agriculture committee. One of them was kind of contentious. It's the cloud seeding one.
Right.
There's a lot of misinformation out there on cloud seeding and what it does and the effects of it. It's a tool that our farmers would hate to lose because it's been proven that it increases the snowpack and everything like that. So that one came through agricultural committee and passed out. Let's see. And then, of course, the mitigation that's taken place on the Snake River the last couple of years have been really important, and the ongoing funding of $30 million for that.
Right. And $30 million to recharge the aquifer.
To recharge the aquifer.
Right. So we've been obviously very cognizant of the water rights throughout the whole state. And I know even our Lieutenant Governor, Scott Bedke, is very, very involved in making sure that Idaho has water, Idaho has water, and the people that need the water get it.
Yes.
So it's just a crucial.
We were really hoping for a wet year to help
smooth
that over. And
yeah, I mean, we got a lot of rain, and so maybe it's down there in the aquifer, but
down there.
It's
definitely
certainly
not up in the mountains.
I mean, there's no snow up there in those mountains outside the capital. So
yeah, but water is the lifeblood of Idaho.
It is. Sure. And so we just thank you, Representative Dan Garner, for joining us on the Idaho House Republicans podcast. And as we always remind you before we sign off, God bless the great state of Idaho. And again, thank you, Representative Dan Garner, who represents Legislative District 28 in Seat B in his second term. We thank you for joining us on the Idaho House Republicans podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Victor.
Sunrise on the Snake River plain, red, white, and blue in the window pane. Work boots dusty from yesterday, but we're back at it the Idaho way.